Hi, welcome back for another preview video. Today I'm very excited to show you how Iron Core plays. Iron Core is a jewel of a game. I'm very happy to discover this game and I'm really excited about its upcoming crowdfunding campaign page. I'm going to add a link in the description of the video below so you can find out more about the game launching soon. It's a game about a sandbox experience in a futuristic dystopian future where everything has collapsed and humanity has turned towards piracy. But we're not talking about old age piracy. We're talking about modern vessels with modern capabilities, with upgrades and all sorts of different, I don't know, cyberpunk or whatever you can call it, futuristic pirate approach in terms of theme and universe that fit really well into the game and into the how it looks and into its I should say background. Now the game really excels, and I'm going to typically with these videos, as you know, I give my first impressions and a bit of theme and introduction in the beginning, explain fully the rules in the middle section, which we'll do now also with timestamps, so you can go directly to battle or whatever you want to see, and then at the end my final impressions. We'll talk more about the review part and my personal opinion. But I have to put it out there. I really love the game and I really recommend it. I can't recommend it high enough. If you're into sandbox games, it's a game you should definitely check it out. It's a game that has tremendous amazing replayability, a ton of options, plays super fast, has a great tempo, okay? It's very unique. Every time it's different. It has so many things to try, and I mean, even in our last session we have recorded a 3-player playthrough, which you can also follow and see separately how it plays in practice and get a feeling about the gameplay of the game and its what vibes it gives you on the table. We went for completely different things with the other players on the table, and we ended up 2 players for the first position tiebreaker for who winning the game, and me behind by 3 points. So you can understand how interesting it is to play a different approach on the game, go for different things, for monsters, or go for upgrades, or go for plundering, etc. So and get so close at the end after final scoring. For me, this is always a demonstration, a statement, a celebration, if you want, of how well designed the game is. The game, as I said, is in the future, dystopian future. It has fantastic art, it has beautiful table presence, it has amazing miniatures. They really give this 3D aspect element and vibes on the board, and the blue colors are amazing. If you go well and dive into the details of the art, they're even much more expressed and vibrant if you go up close and see how the art is from close, even on the simple hex, the open sea, the open waters. The city tiles are amazing. The artist is phenomenal. He has done exceptional work. The design of the game is amazing. I was blown away by the fast pace, how it really shines and goes, how plays really fast, but also the universe, because I have a lot of pirate games and I like pirate games. I love sandbox games. Western Legends is one of my favorite ones. Typically in sandbox games you can do whatever you want. You have the illusion, or maybe the reality, depending on the game, of the freedom to go and try different things, go to the shop, go hunting, go killing, go, I don't know, making, trading, whatever you want, and pursue different things and trying to win the game. In this game you get also the same feeling, because you can do all sorts of different things, but you have amazing opportunities to level up, to upgrade your ship, to go for different things in the R&D, and to adapt based on what the game is throwing to you, based on the map placement, where the city shows up through the exploration. By the way, the exploration is fantastic because the map is constructed gradually with the player's placement, and you can really play focused on scanning to get a lot of things out fast, or focused on getting better versus some monsters, so you can try to pursue and defeat monsters later and gain victory points and so on. Overall, great impressions, fantastic theme and setting. An excellent game for players and those that want a sandbox experience with a lot of replayability and a lot of different things to try without difficult rules. The iconography may seem a bit too much, but it's the same icons that they come into different places on the map, on the cards, on the player board. So after a couple of turns it's like that. So and it just lets players focus on the joy, the pure enjoyment of an open game with very clever opportunities to explore, very clever ways to gain points and to try to win the game, and a lot of tension, interaction, direct and indirect, between the players all the time. So join me at the table. I'll show you how the game plays in practice. I'll explain everything in rules. I'm going to add timestamps in the link so they can jump directly to specific portions of the rulebook and find out what's what. And then at the end of this video, as always, I'm going to wrap up my final opinion and first impression from the game, even though you already understood that I love the game and I really enjoy it. So let's see how the game plays. It all started with a flash. In the blink of an eye, the entire world changed. Wreckage replaced cities, pollution and nanoparticles twisted life as we know it, and the blue waters of the planet turned sick, green, purple and black. Humanity was forever scared, and in a dark era that began just now. Devoid of laws, compassion and regard for each other, it took centuries for new technologies fit for this cruel new world to be developed, and mankind to regain some form of dignity. Still, piracy and plundering remain the most common ways of survival. Factions were formed, and an alliance to keep them all at bay called the Syndicate was a natural choice to avoid bloodshed between them. Amidst this catastrophe, at the center of the seas, there is a flash that originated from. Stood three ominous spiky pillars that came to be called the Urchin Towers. Years of recon missions and countless deaths later, the Syndicate gathered intel of a great underwater structure located in the midst of these centuries. Due to the electrical charge emitted from it, and for lack of better understanding, it became known as the Ion Core. In due time, all unidentified ship emitting the same energy reading, which came from the Ion Core, was located roaming the wider area, as if to protect the structure and its secrets. Many daredevils from the factions attempted to learn more about it, interact with it and even intercept it, but ended without fail and without success at the bottom of the sea. The ghost ship was the Orion MOSFET, its name being the only information freely available to the rest, and it provided the Syndicate's radar systems to confirm its corporeal existence, and it became an obsession and a nightmare at the same time for many. It was evident that the Ion Core, the Urchin Towers and the Orion MOSFET were man-made, and their creators were vaguely called the Corporation. Its purpose was unknown, but it was clear that they were the cause of this destruction and the world in shutters as it is now. Whether their identity will ever be revealed remains to be seen, but in the meantime the Syndicate was more and more trying to get involved into finding out more about this situation. Resource shortage and sea behemoths were there, and they had to be dealt with. And if humanity in this new age of piracy manages to overcome their immediate ordeals, that's to be known. Maybe the Ion Core secrets will prove to be more than just simple salvation. Welcome to this preview video for Ion Core. This is a brand new game coming from Magister Games. I'm very excited today to show you how the game plays. It's going to be as I said before, an instructional video, so I'm going to have all the details. So we're going to cover all things in detail. We're going to add timestamps in the description so you can quickly navigate, find more about the components, the game, how the game plays, battle, and so on. So let's start right away. Just to remind everybody, Ion Core is a 1 to 4 players. It's a thematic sandbox game set in a post-apocalyptic dystopian world. Humanity has been driven to piracy to secure a brighter future, and it's up to the players to guide their factions to victory. Plunder, scavenge for spoils, and hunt dangerous aquatic creatures. The choice is up to the players. But beware, you're not alone in sailing the seas. Enemy ships and a mysterious, relentless adversary haunts every move that you make. So plan well, take risks, and brave your way to total control. Now, first of all, let's familiarize ourselves with the components of the game, but before doing so, just a couple of more things about the game itself. The game is played over a series of rounds until any player reaches either 30 or 8 or 50 or 10 renown or geary space on the track, on the renown track. I'm saying 30 or 8 because you can either trigger the end game by 30 renown, which is the victory points, or 8 geary on the renown track. This is a short game, or you can play the long game for 50 victory points or renown, or 10 geary. You can see that by this token over here, because it demonstrates if you're playing the short or longer game, respectively. The top is the amount of victory points that trigger the game. The bottom is the amount of kiri you need to collect in order to trigger the game. That being said, we have to give you a bit of instructions or what happens in the game. So when players trigger the end of the game, when this happens, they continue playing until the end of the current round, and this triggers the end game round, after which the game ends and the final scoring occurs. Players add or subtract renown points, and the player with the most renown points wins the game. In case of a tie, the player with the most ship upgrades wins the game, and if it's still a tie, the player with the most crew members wins. If still is a tie, which it's very rare, the current first player of the turn order will be the winner. Now, as said, let's move into the breakdown of the components of the game, one by one. Again, I'm going to list the components here briefly, but keep in mind that I have done a very detailed prototype unboxing video. This looks gorgeous. It's an advanced prototype, as you can see, but it already looks amazing in my personal opinion. The art is fascinating, the production is great. There are also the minis included, not just the minis with the core game, but also the minis of the monsters, as you see here. So let's go into the detailed breakdown of the components. First of all, we have the map, which you see here. We're going to make a bit of explanation of the map, of the different coordinates, for example, south, east, how the map works, how the different spots work and what they do. But you can see already that there is a very long map for players to interact with, a lot of spaces and a lot of areas to move around for the different things. Keep in mind that all these spaces are going to be, not all, a lot of these spaces are going to be filled with tiles as players explore the area and form the map, which is going to be different each game by using different tiles through their exploration. And you can see you have a different type of tiles. You have the 4 large 7 hex tiles here. You have 6 medium 3 hex tiles. You also have 4 small 2 hex tiles, and then there is a variety of 25 single hex tiles with lots of single different things that you can have here. They're here at the bottom. In any case, it's important, and we'll get more into detail later on. All this exploration is going to happen through the actions of the players, and this theoretically empty initially space is going to be populated with a variety of locations, cities, wreckages, plunder spaces, and the animals will also, and the monsters will also start roaming around the sea. So the next thing that we have is the sideboard. Theoretically this could be up, below or above the main board, or the sideways, up how you ever see fit based on your table space. I squeezed it here just because I wanted to have a nice screenshot with everything into my my screen, so you can show you everything at once, but you can have it wherever you want. It's detachable, okay, and it has besides the renown point, we're going to break it down later, it has the locations for the different cities when they are discovered, how you can interact with them, the city militia there, the turn order, and the day-night marker, which rotates from one to another, making the cities become different spots, have different options whether you interact with them during a day round or a night round. Following that, we have a 4-player double-sided player boards. These are the faction boards. You already see here 2 of them listed, demonstrated. I just want to show you up close another one, so that you can see the level of detail. This is recessed. This has fantastic art. I love the art in this game. The artist has done a tremendous job in illustrating this magnificent world, but there is also, you see the background, the story, both for the captain and for their vessel, their sea vessel. So Verita the Matriarch has the Palladium, for example, okay, and this is different for the different captains. There are 4 in them in total. We're going to go into detailed breakdown of the components of the player board, but once you hear everything, then it will all click and make sense, just to show you the amount of detail that has been thrown into developing and preparing this player board. It's not just a playing area, it's a very functional player board with a lot of gameplay perks. The next thing we have is events. We have a deck of events, okay. The events in the game dictate a lot of interaction. For example, some general things that can happen. Then you have monster activity if they're on board. Then you have the NPC, the Orion MOSFET, the large vessel that lurks around and creating problem for all players. Okay, and then you can have also some interaction based on if you have merchants, a module or something else. Okay, also it has some event cards that you can have day or night, where you can of course interact differently based on what type of round you're playing with. So a variety of event cards. We have a variety of common fate cards. These are these cards here. Keep in mind that these are different from the personal fate deck. Each player has their own fate deck. And this is a very cool game mechanism. Okay, this is personal because it has in the fate the background of the captain, you can see, compared to the generic one, which is this one. Okay, but let me just show you another. Okay, they have similar philosophy, these cards, and you can enrich your personal fate deck with additional fate cards. You always have a fate card to play in your turn. Okay, and these have a really good way of giving you options to interact with different things in the game. So I really like this mechanism. We have 40 player fate cards in the 10 for each player on the personal deck. We have 10 research cards. These are these cards here. Again, the art is amazing. Different things that they can be researched upon. This is different from your personal research because you have your upgrades here and your R&D here, which are given and you can already do it. This is a research card that you find separately in the course of the game. We have relic cards. These are very powerful relics that once discovered and acquired or stolen from other players, they give you a tremendous boost. Okay, these are really powerful, and players are seeking them constantly. We have espionage cards. With different things to do for espionage, as the title indicates. Then there is a variety of Plunder deck cards. We have 5 cards in each deck. This is level 1, level 2, and level 3. And just to show you one of those decks, you know it's level 1 because it has 1 skull here. The respective level 2 have 2 skulls, and level 3 have 3 skulls. But what is interesting, it's every time you interact with if you plunder, you decide if you're going to plunder a 1, 2, or 3 level, then you pick up the respective deck, and this is going to be explained later on, just now demonstrating the components, but it's important because it shows the numbers of the values that you can have for defense, okay, and different things that happen when you win or lose. And this deck plays every time you make a level 1 plundering. Same goes for level 2 and level 3. The most common deck in the game is the scan deck because it has a variety of cards for scan. Players will also start with 1 scan card next to their player board during setup. This is the main way to bring different tiles through exploration, because you scan, and when you scan you explore, and for example this will make the player through this exploration to add a 2-hex tile or a monster on board or a monster on this quadrant of the map, and so on. You see, a 3-hex tile and so on. Scanning is the main deck that is used for exploration. Okay, and players do this frequently in order to discover new areas to interact with and plunder, upgrade their ships, etc. The next the next type of cards that we have are these startup cards. These are the whereabouts. There are 4, 1 for each player. They're randomly given to each player, 1 for each player, and it shows the starting turn order. It shows the starting resource, the starting location on the map, which quadrant of the map you're playing. So he's playing on the southwest side on the specific location, some general tips, and then it just gives you a quick boost on how to start the game, where to start, with what resources, etc. But these are used only during setup. Then we have the 4 city cards. The city cards are active only upon discovered from hex exploration. Once they're discovered and you find the clock city, then you know where it is and you can go there and interact, and you can do all these jobs or interactions with them. You can recruit, you can hire, you can entertain, and all sorts of things, whether it's day or night, depends on the side. And then depending randomly which slot they are placed during setup randomly, you also have the additional traits at the bottom. As I mentioned, you have the militia track over there, you have turn order markers, you have the day-night marker and the victory point trigger marker. Then let's move into the play rates. The game comes with a fantastic play rate. I can't emphasize enough how playing this game becomes simple and straightforward with this shop catalog. This indicates all the upgrades you can place, and here's a space for 9, as you can see, slots for upgrade tiles. I haven't shown you the upgrade tiles yet, they're below there, but I'm going to come just in a sec. But the play rate has all these upgrade tiles there explained, so you can really don't have to take out the rulebook, just take each player has one, you can pick up and see what each upgrade does and really make your vanilla starting sea vessel something unique. From scrap upgraded to a super ship with a lot of capabilities, a lot of extra crew specialists, etc. Okay, here's some R&D icons reminders. These are really good play rate, by the way. It has a reminder of the player turn, it has the actions explained. Okay, you have 2 action tokens and you spend them to do different things, so everything is explained very nicely here on the play rate. Speaking of play rate, then we can see the player area. You have the player board, you have the dice. You don't roll dice in this game. These are just to indicate that you have 1 crew of a forager or 2 crew of a Nimrod and I don't know, 5 crew of a skirmisher. As you play the game, you acquire more crew and specific let's say expertise, 4 different types of crew members, and you can go from 1 to 6 how many you have on your vessel, and this really indicates how powerful your attacks would be versus different targets like cities, monsters, plunder, spaces, etc. Then we have the faction tokens. We have one of those, for example, on the play rate, on the victory point track there. We have 2 extra to gain based on events, but on the majority of the rounds we're just going to have 2 action tokens. You can spend them. If you interact with something on the city or with a city or something on the map, you just place it there for the round and then you recover it at the end. And the second one, so you have 2 to interact with locations on the map or to do different things and expend them from actions to used actions. Okay, so you have 2 actions to perform. And then they reset each turn. The next thing we have is various orange and white wooden markers. These are used for the tracks, for example for the brew, the morale, etc., or the R&D track. And the white markers here can be used for various things. For example, for when you find the coordinates of the mystical island, which is going to be a mini in the miniature box, I think, but it's it is 1 token for the core box edition, whatever it's going to be. I think in the core box you're going to have a miniature of this fantastic NPC that you see here. This is the MOSFET. This is amazing. And the 4 sea vessels, 1 for each player, for each faction. Okay, and then in the miniature box, if I'm not mistaken, but please follow the campaign for details, you're going to have, instead of tokens for the gates, these are portals to travel quickly from one side to the other, making travel very, very easy and going across the map easy. And the monsters also. This is a Leviathan, for example. Okay, instead of tokens you have miniatures, but there are also some modules like the merchants that I have not included here, that they also have their small minis, which are really nice. Now the next thing I want to cover, besides the cards, the player boards and the miniatures, we have the resource markers. Okay, the game comes with credit. I mean, this may change because it's under development, but in any way, for this advanced prototype you have the credit 1 and 5. You have the 3 resources of the game. Okay, 3 different types of resources, 1, 2, 3, and then you have, for me, one of the most interesting things in the game, in the sandbox game, are these upgrade tiles. Okay, they're going to come back into the box with trays, so this is very useful because you have a different amount of tiles, as you can see, per type. And the great thing about the game, so this is an upgrade library, so you have a lot of upgrade tiles to really make the experience and your vessel something very, very unique and different. Okay, and how this works is for each of this spot you have 3 options, not 1 but 3 options. Okay, so once, for example, you take them, you're going to use them and place them. They have the icon, so you know that this one, for example, or that one, these 3 ones, you decide which one of the 3 will go on this spot, and this will give you something very, very unique and specific for your ship. Okay, so I think I've covered most of the components, if not all. So there you have it. This is everything you see inside the game when you open the game, and let's proceed into setup. Core game setup. First of all, we start with the game board setup, and then we'll proceed with the player board setup. For the game board, the first thing we do is to set up the core game. We place the map in the center of the table with the sideboard attached to it in either side, so either on the right or on the left. Then we place a white marker on the bottom space of the militia track as shown in front of you, and a plunder token, just to show you, this is a plunder token, on each of the tracks that they are on this upper corner or lower corner of each of the sides of the board. Okay, and we place a plunder token on the spot of the track corresponding to the number of players. This is a 4-player game, so I placed it all the way to the top, but if we were playing a 3-player game, it will be 1 space below for each of the 4 tracks in the 4 corners of the game board. Place the Orion MOSFET miniature at the center hex of the board, which is exactly here, between the 3 urchin towers. Place the Vault Island above the west cardinal direction hex of the space with the clouds. This is the space with the clouds, as you can see here, and the Vault Island goes there. There is one next to each cardinal direction, west, north, east and south, and has this type of art always. So these are the 4 spots, the only 4 spots the Vault Island can move into in a clockwise fashion. Place a portal hex tile or a portal miniature, depending on the version of the game that you have, on each of the highlighted edge spaces on the map. Color on portals doesn't matter during setup, and you can place them as you like or randomize them. And for all factions of setup and startup, the portals act the same. These are indicated, as you can see here. So one goes there, one there, one there, and one there. So you have 4 portals on the map to begin. Next, we shuffle the city cards. Again, these are the city cards. They're dual-sided. They have the day side and the night side. We shuffle those 4 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, randomly, and we place randomly one on each of the 4 spots on the sideboard to begin with. Shuffle the event cards, the espionage cards, then the plunder cards for the respective deck, and place them nearby. And then once you do that, shuffle, do not shuffle the common fate or the respective relic and research decks, and place them face down at the edge of the sideboard. Then, moving forward, we need to place the rest of the tokens, the ship upgrades and the single hex tiles near the board, but shuffle, place down all the 2 hex, 7 hex and 3 hex tiles. These are these tiles here, as you can see. Okay, they need to be shuffled and placed nearby in piles for their size, respective size. The 7 hex, the 3 hex, and last but not least, the 2 hex. All this needs to be shuffled and create a face down pile for each of those sizes respectively and place them nearby. I'm going to remove them for the screen just to save some space, but they are nearby. And then you have also, you take out of the box the upgrade tiles. Okay, keep in mind that each column refers to the same spot on your sea vessel. Okay, it's just 3 options that you have for each of the spot, and you have 2 trays with upgrade tiles that you have them nearby, and you can use them for the course of the game. Now we need to construct the scan deck in a specific way. So the first thing we do is we remove from the scan deck the 4 cards showing a 7 hex tile. These are these cards here. We remove them, set them aside for the moment. Then we take the remaining deck, we shuffle it thoroughly. We pick up 15 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. Okay, so we take 15 cards and then we shuffle in this 15 deck these 7 hex tiles. Okay, we need to shuffle them thoroughly. So these are 15 random cards plus the 7 hex cards, and we place this on top of the remaining scan deck, and this is how we create the scan deck to begin with. Decide if you want to play a normal game with 30 renown points or 8 Kiri, or the longer game with 50 renown points and 10 respectively. And deciding that, then you set the corresponding site on the spot of the board as a reminder for our players when the end game is going to trigger. Each player starts the game with their respective 10 fate personal deck. You can distinguish which are the starting fate cards from the artwork depicting on each captain. So this is the captain matching your personal captain, okay, and all the fate cards belonging to you, the starting fate cards belonging to your captain, have on the background faded the art of your captain. Once you selected those, you shuffle them and place them near your player board, and then from there each player draws 2 cards as a personal hand and keep them next to them for use. Okay, you're going to continuously have 2 fate cards. When you play one, you always immediately draw one. So place it next to your player board so that you can always have 2, and you can also have 2 to start the game. Player board setup. Each player randomly takes a character board or chooses the one that they like to play with, and then they have the respective chosen character's ship miniature. Each player takes their 6 tokens, their faction tokens, according to the symbol on the player board. Okay, so you take the respective faction tokens, and then you place one on the one has the 30 plus back, and you place it on the renown track. Let me show you for counting renown victory points. So you place your faction token. Every player actually does that on the 5 spot, the highlighted spot on the renown track. So you start with 5 renown, and you're trying to acquire more renown points through the course of the game. By the way, a quick mistake, just because I sorted out the game very fast. This is the contents for the blue player, so this needs to be changed with the respective red player. This is for the red player, so instead of this, you're going to have the red vessel and the red dice and faction tokens. And you can easily see your faction symbol here. That means that this is the faction tokens, so you place 2 of them for storage here, 2 of them for your main actions on the action slot. Once you use them, you move them from this box to this box for the used actions. Okay, and the next thing that we needed to do from setup is to place the red color dice to count the crew member, and again the matching ship vessel is the red one. Okay, you can always see that from the color of the background, and the icon of the faction. The last faction token goes on the turn order track in the spot according to your whereabouts card. For example, the red player starts on start turn order 4. It's going to be explained more in detail. So this is where you place your last faction token. Moving back to your player board, you place an orange marker on the top space of the brew. This is a track for the brew, and the morale. So on the top space of each of those, you place a single orange token. Following that, you place an orange marker at the bottom space of the R&D track. This is this track that goes from different branches, so you need to place one at the center, at the bottom of the R&D track. And following that, you also place an orange marker at the beginning of the Syndicate Alliance, the allegiance with the Syndicate, so to show that you are on the highest possible spot, and this will be modified as you have interactions with the MOSFET or ion MOSFET down the road. You place the starting credit, if any, in the area of your vault here. So next to your vault you have a capacity of 20. So again, this is based on your whereabout card. So this player starts with 3 credit. Okay, so you place it there, and if you had any resources, starting resources, or when you acquire more in the course of the game, you place them next to your cargo. The initial hold for your cargo is 5. This can be increased through setup, but for the moment, again, this player starts only with credit, so you don't place anything else there. As mentioned before, each of your D6, it's just an indicator of how many crew of that type you have, for example, how many foragers. So you need to place all of them at the start of the game, showing 1 pip. So you start with 1 of each of the crew members, 1 forager, 1 skirmisher, 1 heavy gunner, and 1 Nimrod. Each player randomly takes a whereabouts card, if this is one of these cards, so you randomly draw one of the 4 cards in front of you, and this has all the starting information you need. For example, this player has a starting turn order of 4, so their faction on the turn track is going to be on the 4th spot. They start with 3 resources, this 3 credit as starting resources, so you place them on your vault, so no additional resources. Also, it shows the starting location of their ship. This is on the southeast quadrant of the map, so you can see it here quickly, so it needs to be there. And it also shows the exact location where they start from, so you can see, for example, the green spawn monster and the blue spawn monster, and you can calculate from there that this is the exact space where the red player, they're going to place their vessel to begin with, so it's here. Also, it shows that you need to draw 1 card from the scan deck, so you pick up 1 card from your scan deck, and you place it nearby, near your personal belongings, okay? And then you're going to not reveal it, you're going to play it at the start of your turn, as part of your first turn in the game. Also, the whereabout cards have some really nice general tips that you can find here, and they're very useful, especially for your first plays. Again, just a highlight on the turn order. We said that the players place their last faction token on the order track according to the number on the whereabouts card. The player with the lowest number places their faction token on the leftmost empty space of the track, followed by the other players in that order. The map has 4 cardinal directions, and this is just going into details by explaining the map and the sideboard. So we start with the map. So the map has 4 cardinal directions. As you can see, what expected, we have north, south, east, and west, and also on the corners you can have the respective, for example, northwest, northeast, southeast, and southwest respectively. When an event card, for example, instructs you to move a monster 3 spaces towards north, it means the exact space the N north symbol is at. So if the monster is here and it says move 3 spaces to the north, you don't go 3 spaces towards the north, you just go towards the north space icon, this one specifically. All hex spaces are considered C spaces. So everything you see in front of you at the moment, we haven't populated, explored anything at the moment, everything is considered C space. This means you can navigate, take the navigate action with your ship on any space, but some of those spaces have limitations. Like for example, once you place hex tiles, you'll see that you have limitations. You cannot go onto cities, you just go next to the cities to harbor there and interact with them, okay? But when the game starts, everything is empty, so everything is considered C level and everything can be entered in, theoretically. Yeah, right. Now, in general, you can neither place a hex tile nor make a placement on any printed game element on the map, nor overlap a hex tile with another tile. So through exploration, we said we're going to pick up and place some hexes on the board. Players will follow instructions on how to place them, meaning the scan card itself is going to instruct you to place it within a certain range from your ship vessel, and rotate it any way you want. okay, but under no circumstances you can overlap and hide, for example, spawn monster tokens or other elements of the game, or different locations, for example, where the Vault Island moves, etc. Okay, these pre-printed locations are not to be covered, nor you can cover a hex tile with another hex tile. Also, once discovered and explored, all hexes enter the game board with the explore side showing the different elements of the game. Now let's quickly familiarize with a couple of the elements on the map. So you have, for example, a general hex space for C. So this is a C space, C space, C space, etc. Everything that you see, it's a C space. We have the central hex space of the map, which is this one, between the 3 urchin towers, okay, and this is where the MOSFET starts the game from, the NPC. Then you have the spaces around it. As I mentioned, they're called urchin towers, and more of them can come from the course of the game with placement of single tiles like that, okay, showing one of the urchin towers. Once these come, you get additional urchin towers placed on the board, and they have electricity and they have some effects that they go on. But at the beginning of the game, you just have 3 around the starting space. You have the Vault Island spaces that I mentioned before. These are highlighted in cloud, so you have one to the south, one to the east, one to the north, and one to the west from where the Vault Island starts, and this is going to be moving clockwise always according to the event card from space to space like that. Even if you're next to the Vault Island, you cannot just go and discover it and gain its rewards. You have to dig in, invest, and find the exact coordinates so that you can enter it. It's mystical after all. The next thing that we have is a reminder that the island vault spaces are not to be entered, so you cannot place a tile there, as we said, not a ship can enter them, nor a monster, okay, so they should be vacant for the Vault Island to move in based on event effects. Then we have the monster spawn tile locations. Again, this is a C tile, so you can enter it, but keep in mind that this is the exact C hex where a specific monster of this type spawns, so you have 2 of each colors. So you see the yellow ones, the green one, okay, the blue ones, and the purple ones. These are the 4 different types of monsters. Again, they're gorgeous miniatures in the miniature pack for the monsters, and they're going to be entering through these spaces through the course of the game, through events. For example, the Kraken spawn point, it's the purple one. So if an event instructs you to spawn a Kraken, it will go either on this side based on the event or that spawn point, okay. So I'm just going to place them in there to start populating. This is the Leviathan. You can only see the tip of the Leviathan. It's amazing by the way. And then you have all the additional monsters that they can enter play through the this is the Leviathan which goes there, I believe. Yeah, that's the Leviathan, the green spot, okay. And these are the Gorgons, okay. So again, the event will dictate when you spawn the monsters, but their starting space are going to be pinpointed exactly by the event, both by color / type and proximity. It will say, for example, spawn the Leviathan on the southeast side of the board. That's the space where the Leviathan will go, okay, and that is the southeast quadrant. That means it will go exactly there. Then we have the portal spaces that they have highlights, as you can see. This is where you place the portal tile or portal miniature, okay, and this is part of the setup. And you have specific locations where the portals will enter the game. There are some events that may enable a player to move a specific portal somewhere else based on the preference, and this will create a bit of interest in the gameplay as well. But for the majority of the game, this is the place where you'll find the portals on the map. Just a reminder, when a player's ship enters a portal hex, you may spend a +1 move to remove the ship from the current portal hex and place it on any other portal on the map and continue moving with the navigation action and ship movement, which we're going to be explaining later on. Only players can use portals, monsters and the Orion MOSFET miniature cannot, and if a portal hex is removed due to an event or another card, the current space is considered just a C space and nothing more than that. As mentioned earlier, we have the Wasteland Plunder meters. We have one in each of the quadrant of the map, so this is for the southwest. Again, you have a token that starts on the exact player count, in this case 4 players. If you are playing a 3 game, you will start there, and once players are plundering discovered locations on this quadrant, they will move one down, and at some point this is going to be exhausted. That means even if more plunder opportunities come through exploration of tiles there, you have completely exhausted all the plunders and you cannot plunder anymore, so the game forces you to move to other locations, and this is a very clever mechanic of the game. But also it's a good way to show scalability between players, because it will force the players to consider different opportunities if they want to continue plundering. And just to show you a tile where you can have locations to plunder, this is a plunder icon, so you can go there and perform a plunder on this hex, specific hex, the middle one. Okay, this is the plunder location. So when a successful plunder action happens, more on that later, you will lower the plunder meter token to the current quadrant on the map, and that means that you can no longer plunder this. If it reaches all the way to the bottom and it's depleted, that means you cannot go and plunder any more spaces, so you need to move somewhere else. Now, let's take a closer look on the sideboard. We have the renown track on the top of the sideboard. You see it? This is the renown icon that you gain renown from the actions you have in the game. So it goes all the way up to 30, but if you're playing the longer game, you can flip your token to the +30 count and continue counting until you go all the way to the 50. Players again decide if they're going to play the short or long term and indicate that by placing the token over there. There are 2 empty spaces above the turn order track during game setup, and you place either on either space the renown token, which acts as a reminder of the day-night phase. So this is the day-night, and the other space is to indicate if you're playing the longer or shorter game respectively. On each of these spaces during setup, a random city card will go, so you have 4 spaces here, okay, and during setup you're just going to place randomly a card there, which clicks with the trade options. So when you go to Clock City, once it's discovered through scan and hex exploration, when it's visible, for example, Clock City is here, so it needs to come into play in order to be able to interact with it, but more on that later. So once it's visible and you can interact with that, that means that you can go here and do go next to the city and do any or all of the actions you want from the Clock City. For example, recruit, entertain, hire, and you have 2 trade options. Okay, so more on that later, but there is 1 space for each of the 4 major cities in the game. Keep in mind that on each city card there are some options players can make when they perform an interact action, and again the interact action with the city, just to remind you, if you're thinking you're confused with iconography, everything really comes into makes sense once you see the city icon is this one, and this is how you this is what you'll be looking for, the city icon. So when you interact with the city, you'll have the options of all of those things to do. You can do some of them or any of them or all of them, okay, and this is different depending on the city you visit on the map each time. But something important to mention is that when you perform an interact action with a city, you can take any options you want in any order. So you can do first recruit, then trade, then hire, for example, but you cannot take the same action twice, okay. Then you have the militia track there. So it starts at the bottom and this increases, so the more we attack and plunder cities for the benefits, the more prepared the cities will be. And this is a common militia track. This acts for all of the cities. Consider them that they talk with each other over the radio, and they know what's going on. So if the clock city is attacked or the ambition city is attacked, this affects commonly the city militia track. Plundering a city, we'll see how you plunder a city later. When you plunder a city, this will raise the city militia meter by 1 on the track. And on the first space you subtract 1, but on the following spaces you subtract 2. And even when you go even higher, you subtract 2 from your plundering attempt. More on that later. But on top of that, you may only plunder the 2-level and 3rd-level deck. So it makes they're much well prepared. So you cannot decide to go for 1, 2, or 3 when you're on these spots. You have to specifically go to 2 or 3, 2 or 3, and here at the very end of the track, only level 3, which is harder to beat, of course, as you would expect. The last thing to mention is about the turn order. Here you can see the turn order, and this is the turn order track. When all players complete their actions, the round is over and the adjustment of the turn order for the next round takes place. The renown track determines the turn order for the upcoming round. The player with the lowest amount of renown on the renown track above will come here and become the first player and places their marker from their position wherever they are on the first spot of the turn track. Followed by the second to last player, and so on until all the players have updated the turn order. In case of a tie, the tied players exchange their relative order. For example, if they were 3rd in the previous round, then they will exchange players with the person being tied, and that person who was 4th before, they will become 3rd now, and they will become 4th on player turn themselves. Now, let's take the focus back on the player board. This is one of the things in the game that I really loved, the way that you can utilize your different sections on your player board and focus on either your ship, your captain and crew, or your R&D, and make this very, very unique with a lot of upgrades, a lot of different things, and customize it to fully enjoy the sandbox experience. Now let's see the breakdown of the player board and a couple of words for each section. On your player board, regardless which faction you're playing, you have this area here, which is linked with the ship. Okay, so your ship is this one. Okay, it's move around from place to place on the board, and depending on the upgrades you have placed there, either for upgrading the hull, the cargo bay, I don't know, the range that it has, or even getting specific crew members that you place on the top, specialists as you call them. These are different from these ones. Okay, these are very unique specialists which give special abilities and so on. This gives you a lot of powerful boosts. So the area on the left is linked with your ship. The area in the middle, which has the portrait of your captain, is linked with the captain and the crew. So this is your captain, and here is your crew, and here's the morale of your crew, and here's the brew of your crew, and here's the allegiance of your captain and your ship vessel. And then on the right side you have the research and development. This is the icon for the R&D, the research and development. Your track starts from here and goes up and branches off depending on your choices. And this is really interesting because it gives you some very powerful boosts. But also it's very important because, as you'll see later on, it is a capacity limit for the crew members you can have. This is the crew member icon. Again, don't worry about the iconography. It may sound a lot, but for me it sounded a lot at the beginning, but everything is captured really nice and everything makes sense very, very easy with the player aids and with the iconography of the game down the road. So if your research development is in any of those spaces, then your limit for crew members, meaning the total number of pips you can have, is 8. You start already with 1, 2, 3, 4. That means you can get plus 4 more. If you want to go above 4, so 9 and more, you need to be in this section where the limit is 12. In this section the limit is 15, and in this section on the top you can have all 4 times 6, 24, up to the full capacity of your crew members. So this is a general breakdown. Let's go and see each of the sections in a bit more detail. So this is the ship here. The vault space here is a place where you store credits next to it. You have a capacity of 20 credits, so you cannot store more than that. Then you have 3 resources in the game, and let me show you again how they look. These are the 3 types of resources that you can have. And just placing them there above your crew, your cargo, sorry, spot. Okay, So these are the three type of resources you can have, but in any case they're stored on your cargo, and you see the number 5 here because that means you cannot have more than 5 cargo items as indicated on your player board. If you get some type of relics or anything else, for example, in the course of the game, you may need to get additional blocking in your cargo. For example, if you carry a relic, you'll just place one of those markers to indicate that it takes 1 space out of the 5 you have in your cargo, and you use these generic markers. Okay, but for starting the game, you have a capacity of 5 cargo, and you need to make the best out of it. The cargo can be expanded. For example, you see, if you just place this technology, if you decide to go one of your 3 options for this slot to be this one, it can expand your cargo capacity. That means you can have 5 plus 5, 10 cargo. Okay, and this is one of the, just to show you one of the beautiful things in the game. You can really make this game your own, your vessel your own, with all these upgrades that you can give. Okay, so the next thing that I want to highlight is this icon, which is the hull of the game. The hull of your ship indicates the minimum number an opponent has to score to successfully attack you. The number printed on below the hull is information, and some ship upgrade spaces have tokens that represent damage. Okay, we'll see how damage works, but this is the icon value, so your starting value is 8. So this is how much hull you have to begin with. Okay, but you can upgrade your hull by adding an upgrade there, which gives you more options. Just an example, again, this is the icon of the hull. You can go there and you can increase your hull respectively. So again, to conclude, all these 9 spaces are spaces reserved for your ship upgrade placement. You can see that they have different icons that can be found on the top right corner of each space. Here, here, here. That means this specific type of upgrade out of the 3 options goes there, this specific type of upgrade out of the 3 options goes there, and so on. You cannot place, for example, an upgrade tile with this icon on this slot. It needs to be specifically matched as indicated. And you may discard any upgrades you have on your ship to place a new one, but that's not recommended, because you would have lost enough to upgrade. But still, if you want to choose your strategy, you can freely do it. Another spot I want to highlight is you have attack spot here. You see half a cog on this side. You may tack a mod card underneath the designated target space once you meet the requirements. You can only have 1 mod, but you can discard your existing mod to place a new one. Mod cards can be acquired while taking the scan action, and discover them and put them there once you fulfill the requirement. You see, through scan you may discover a mod which has some requirements. You know, once you fulfill these requirements, okay, you can slot it there under this spot, so only this portion of the card will be visible, and this will give you an auto repair bot which has a specific ability and a mod that helps you progress. Now let's move here on the research and development area, the R&D. This is the 3rd portion of your board. Through R&D, you can upgrade your ship and modify, adjust it to your preference. You start each game with a marker at the lowest space of the track over there. This is your starting point for your R&D. And when you gain R&D points, usually through a plunder or trade action, you raise the marker by 1 space. So immediately from the beginning, you can decide to go from this side or from the other side with your first acquired research point. Okay, the R&D track has a branching path, of which one must be followed in any case. Moving upwards, R&D markers cannot go lower than the current point for any reason, and some spaces offer permanent bonuses. You can identify them by the highlighted space marked in yellow. So for example, when you reach here, you get an additional benefit, and to indicate that you have acquired this bonus, you simply take 1 marker and you permanently slot it there to show that you have this ongoing ability for you. And the same goes for all the yellow highlighted spaces, which are unlocked from a specific spot, but they link to a specific ability once you acquire them. Now a quick mention about the icons. I'm not going to explain all the icons. You can find a very nice detailed explanation of all the in the rulebook for all the iconography. So all the different R&D symbols are explained for what they do. Okay, but also the iconography really makes sense from one moment moving forward, you don't have to worry for the icon, because this icon is the same and you may find it in more than one spaces in the game. So let's just briefly mention what this icon does. This is the fate icon, so you can see easily that this is the icon at the back of the fate deck. You have it here. Okay, so that means that when you reach such a spot here, you can also have it higher up the R&D track. That means when you reach a fate spot, you can upgrade your fate deck, meaning when the marker enters that space, you may upgrade your fate deck immediately. You choose one fate card from the common fate deck and place it on top of your discard pile. Okay, so you have additional more powerful fate cards, okay, that give you a nice boost. More on the fate cards later. But again, when you move in one spot that gives you an ability, for example, you unlock the ability and you have the ability. When you move here, for example, this is the victory point, the renown track, meaning you earn immediately 2 renown points. Okay, you can move to other spots that give you other abilities, but in any case, keep in mind that wherever you are, so when you move here with one research point, I can go here and then I can branch left, middle or right section. I gain the reward, and then depending on the section I have this amount of capacity for my total number of crew members as indicated here. By the way, just since we mentioned all the most of the iconography, this is iconography for the crew. Okay, how many crew members you have, you can see it here. And this is just an icon to show you when a marker is placed on such space, you choose one research card to add it to your hand, and it's advised to keep this card secret from other players. Research cards are powerful and they provide you with one-time boost. So this is the research card, you take it from here, from the R&D, makes sense, thematic, okay, and it gives you something really important that you can do, and you keep it hidden. Another action you can find is this icon here. This is linked with the coordinates, so when your marker reaches here, you gain one of the 2 coordinates you need to have. When you have coordinates in the game, but we'll explain that later, for example, by going all the way up there, I would have one of the 2 coordinates of the game, of the Vault Island discovered. Through scanning and through exploration, I may discover a second one. Once I have both coordinates available, that means I can go next to the Plunder, to the Vault Island, and benefit from a huge benefit from the rewards it gives, because I have discovered the exact coordinates. Okay, but even if I don't manage to do that, each coordinate gives me points at the end of the game. Now again, I'm not going to explain all the details here on the research and development track, but let's move to the captain and crew over here. So the first thing you notice is you have the allegiance track at the bottom. This is the allegiance symbol. You have this shaking hands symbol. When Orion MOSFET moves through or ends its movement on the same space as your ship, you must move your allegiance space by 1. That means you lose some allegiance with the pirate syndicate that you're part of. When the allegiance marker goes for any reason to the 3rd space, which is here, you must draw an espionage card. These are these cards here. Essentially, these are mini quests that you need to fulfill in the course of the game whenever you want. They may give you some minor boost or bonus when you fulfill them. For example, you end the turn next to Plunder space, gain 1 renowned victory point, and discard this card from the game. But if you had no plans to do that, this is an ongoing annoyance or bug or opportunity, or however you want to see it, because if you end up the game without fulfilling this espionage mini quest card, you're going to lose 3 renown points. Okay, and this happens also again when this moves here. So the more you interact or are close to the Orion MOSFET, the more of these espionage cards you may need to draw. By the way, again, you see the icon here is the icon there, so everything, the espionage icon is the espionage icon on the back of the espionage deck. Everything is very straightforward once you get to see the details once. But when you continue moving, you do that. If you move here, you suffer a damage, so this is a damage. Okay, and here you draw an espionage card and you take a damage, but you cannot drop less than the bottom of the allegiance. Okay, more than that. And if you have gone all the way to the bottom, that means you will have drawn 1, 2, 3 espionage cards, meaning 3 side quests to pull you away from your main course of action or strategy and give you some boost if you fulfill them, plus 1 more damage. This is the damage icon, and to show that we have damage, we take a damage token, which is this, and we place it on our ship to show that we have a damage, and this will affect us down the road. But anyway, this is how allegiance works. Now, going to the coordinates, as I said, in the course of the game we will be able to gain possibly up to 2 coordinates. If we have both coordinates, that means that we are able to pinpoint the exact location of this mysterious place that holds the secrets to most captains. Some say the island is moving, and some say it offers opportunities. And just to show you, we'll come back to the Vault Island, but just to show you briefly, when this is an action, if you have discovered the Vault Island, meaning exact having 2 markers on the coordinates, you can discard them, you know, to place an action on the Vault Island and perform the activation of the island, which means here you can gain a number of benefits, but we'll explain how this goes, and these are very powerful benefits, meaning you have discovered the actual vault itself, Vault Island, and gain its reward. Of course, then you will remove those, and you may be able, theoretically at least, to revisit it. But that's how it works, the Vault Island. Another space I want to highlight is the space with the actions. So here, each turn we have 2 action tokens. These are here. This is the faction icon, but on the back, on the flip side of the action faction icon, you have the general action marker. This is general, regardless of faction. So that's why you see them here pre-printed. So that means you start your turn with those, and then you spend them to perform some actions, either here or on the map if you interact with something on the map, and then at the end you recall them, and then again you have 2 more actions. Some events may give you a second or third action. You gain 1 from the upgrades from the specialist, give you 1 extra action, and you can also gain 1 up to a 4th one from events, but only for a specific round. Okay, and this is the amount of actions you have when you spend them. This is the available and expend location, unavailable. Now, having said that, let's just focus now on the tracks. We have the brew track, so it starts here at the top and moves down, and we have the morale track, which starts here and moves down all the way to the bottom. And here is the breakdown of those. So brew, alcohol has become a rare luxury. A mixture of seawater and light chemicals in the new drink that is a choice among the crew. Some say it tastes like rum, but there is nobody left to confirm the rumors. In any case, this is your brew supply. It has this icon here. You start the game with full supply, a marker placed on the topmost space of the track, and you may lower your brew supply to do certain things throughout the game. For example, each time you perform a navigate action, you may lower the marker by X amount of spaces to move an X additional amount of spaces with your ship. Okay, think about it getting a bit of morale boost, not morale is a bad choice because it's another track, a bit of boost because you have consumed some of the brew. Okay. Be mindful of your supplies though, because you can replenish them through the actions of the game, but your crew will not be as productive when they deprived of their fix. If the marker is on any of the last 4 spaces, you may have -1 to your total force each time you perform a test involving force, like attacking, etc. In addition, each time you lower the marker to any of the last 3 spaces, you must also lower your morale by 1. So here you see, if you are in either this or that spot, your force is -1. Okay, which may have an impact on your damaging opponent's opportunity or monsters. But also, for each of the subsequent ones, you also have to lower the morale by 1. And the morale is moving downwards, but if it reaches this last spot, it's something that you really don't want, because you can have mutiny. But before going to morale, let's focus again on the crew. This is your crew. Your crew is divided in 4 different crew categories. Each of these categories is useful against certain things. The die located on each of the crew is a counter and signifies the number of said crew members in your possession. For example, again, you can have 5 heavy gunners and 3 skirmishers. But again, keep in mind that it's 5 plus 3, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I need to be above this section with my R&D marker in order to be allowed to have capacity more than 8. Okay, in this case, so you need to go 1 by 1 as much as this is it's linked. Now the number when adding all dice is your total crew number as said, and this may never be more than your limit you have linked with your R&D. Obviously, your crew members, total crew members cannot go more than 24, because 4 times 6 is 24, and cannot go lower than 4, because if you have only aces, 1 pip on each of the die, it's the 4 is the minimum crew that you can have, 1 of each type. If an event, for example, or an effect instructs you to discard 2 crew members, you may exchange any d6 counter by 2 in total. So reducing the pip numbers by 2. If you cannot do, you lower your renown by 1 for every crew member you cannot discard. Okay, so if you are at 4, which is the minimum, and you need to lose crew members, you don't lose crew members, but you lose renown 1 for every crew you cannot discard, which really hurts, obviously. Going in more specifics, each crew type generates force. Okay, the force icon is, let me show you how it looks. Actually, it's pre-printed here, so this is the force icon. So it generates force versus a specific type of target. Okay, so for example, at the start of your game, you will start with 1 crew in each category. That means you have 1 force versus each of the different types of the targets. But during the course of the game, you will increase your crew members and you'll have more force for specific targets. So a Nimrod, in this case 1, creates 1 force versus monsters. The heavy gunner creates a force for plundering cities or attacking other ship captains and their sea vessels. Okay, so other players. In this case 5, so I have 5 force versus cities or crew members, but because also the skirmishers produce for the cities, so if I want to see how much force I'm contributing from my crew members versus plundering cities, which is this icon, I count 5 plus 3, because it's for the skirmisher and the heavy gunner, the icon of the city, a total of 8. But if I wanted to see how much force I have versus other players, I count 5 for this icon plus 1 for this icon, 6. For the monster respectively, I only get force from the Nimrod, but for the skirmisher, generally skirmisher produces force versus wastelands and cities, heavy gunners versus cities and other players, and foragers versus wastelands and other players. Keep in mind that all force is cumulative. For example, at the start of the game, each player has 1 of each crew members. If that player performs a plunder and wasteland, let's move it just for demonstrating the example. If we're performing a plunder, a wasteland action, which is this one, that means I would gain 1 plus 1, 2 force versus wasteland. Okay, but again, this will change because through the course of the game you're going to have different amount of crew members based on your actions in the course of the game, and if you want to go towards hunting monsters, you need to get more crew members, Nimrod. If you want to focus on plundering cities, you need to get heavy gunners and skirmishers, and so on. Actions. So we have captain orders and insights explained. So each player has a very nice, as I said, play rate leaflet, which is called captain orders and insights. It has major information about gameplay and can be found in this leaflet here. And again, this is fantastic use of everything summarized in one booklet, one leaflet with a couple of pages. So on the captain orders, on this section, we have the captain orders, which is here and here. So essentially this is all of your captain orders. Okay, and on the inner part of the leaflet you have the captain insights with all the insights about upgrades, R&D icons, etc. Fantastic job on the player rate, really fantastic job. So on captain orders, details about the course of a round listed there, as well as available actions a player can take. So navigate, scan, tether, plunder a city, these are the different actions you can do, or interact with a vault island, attack a ship, attack a monster. Okay, everything explained. And in the inner part, the captain insights, information about all the transactions a player can make when they interact with different locations. For example, if you interact with docks, if you interact with cities, if you interact with a mod shop. Okay, these are icons that you find on the different things on the hexes you explore. For example, you see we have these icons here, so these are possibilities for 2 players, up to 2 players, to interact with a specific dock in this hex, in the middle one, and it has a dock icon. That's why I'm saying once you've seen the icons once, you really know what you're doing. and give you also an explanation of the R&D icons here as a reminder. So you don't even need to memorize the R&D icons, you can always find the info nice and easy there. So let's go back into the captain order. So we see the start of the round, we have phase 1. During phase 1, the first player on the turn order track discards the active event, if any, from the previous round to the bottom of the event deck and draws and resolves a new event. When the event is resolved, it is placed at the bottom of the event's deck unless there is an ongoing effect over the round that means that it needs to be visible, for example, something happening for the whole duration of the round. In this case, the event stays face up and then it will discard it at the beginning of the next round. So that's the phase 1. Then we move to phase 2. For the phase 2, during phase 2, players may spend any of their commands in play order according to the turn order. These are the command tokens they have. This is a general icon and this is a faction specific icon, but it acts exactly as the same, as a reminder. So they can spend, each player in turn order, from the turn order track, they can spend their action tokens they have to perform a variety of actions according to their wish. If a player has remaining command actions but doesn't want to use of those or simply wants to pass for the round, they place all of their remaining commands on the unavailable to the unavailable spot on their player board, on the right side of the bottom of the player board, and that means that they have finished with their commands for the round. This is done in turn order, so first player in turn order will take their commands, actions, then second player, then third player, then fourth player, and then we move, once we finish, to phase 3. In phase 3, first of all, it's a cleanup phase and an adjustment of the turn order track. Each player returns all their commands from their spent area on the board to the available for the next round. Each player then, once we've done that, we make sure to any unused commands that we have on the board, because you can interact when you spend something, you can move it from the available to the used ones on the bottom of your player board, but also you can interact with different things. For example, I can plunder something, then I place one of my markers on there to indicate that I have plundered this with my ship because I was next to it and I performed the plunder action. Okay, so once we finished in the phase 3, we take all the ones from the map or whatever we interacted with and we place it on our available actions, and the ones from the used actions, and we place it again on the available actions to be ready for the next round. The next thing we need to do is we lower the city militia by 1, okay, at the end of during the phase 3, and if possible we flip the day-night counter to the other side. So now we're going to play night for the other round, and all the cards are going to be flipped to the night side as shown here. So the next round is going to be a night round. That means again clock city, we're going to have night actions plus the pre-printed ones and so on. Next round again, when next round comes at the end, at the phase 3, again they're going to be flipped to the day night. So this alterates from day to night unless something different specifies. Okay, so again the options are going to be different because we're playing day. Last but not least, we're going to perform the adjustment of the turn order. So let's say we finish like that. That means the green player in turn order was before first, the blue was second, yellow was third, and the red player was fourth. Now based on the victory point track, the yellow player now is ahead and the red player is the last in the renown. So as a catch-up mechanism, the last player in renown victory points are going to go first in the turn order, okay, and then blue player is going to be second, green is going to be third, and the yellow is going to be fourth, as we explained earlier. Now let's see how all these actions look and work in practice. Again, keep in mind that you can find the list of all the actions and how they work, navigate, scan, tether, etc. on this player aid. Also attack other ships and attack monsters, or discover the Vault Island. So all the actions, including navigation, the first one that we're going to start with, are explained very nicely on the player aid. So without further ado, let's start with the actions. First we have navigate. Again, the icon for navigate is this one, because you can find it on different things. Okay, so this means navigation. For example, you can also have upgrade technologies which affect navigation that you have on your player board. Okay, so navigation is to navigate. The players use this action to essentially move around the board with their ships. When a player spends a command to perform a navigate action, and I'm going to show it only once, but this also stands for other actions, you just say that from your available action tokens you spend 1 action token to perform navigation. Then they may move their ship up to 3 spaces on the board, so they can move 1, 2 or 3 spaces up to their preference and their target, and during the navigate action they may reduce their brew supplies by X amount in order to move additionally X spaces. So let's say I want to move 4 spaces and I'm this player, so or actually this player, okay, the red player. So let's say I want to move towards this plunder space, so I need to reach it with 1, 2, 3, 4 to be next to it in order to interact with it. So again I can move 1, 2, 3 from my normal movement points allowed by spending an action token to command action token to perform a navigation, and I can boost it to move additional X spaces by reducing my brew. Meaning here I can spend 1 or more, doesn't matter, up to me, brew spots, so spending brew to move additional X spaces. In this case I spent 1 brew, so I can move 1 additional space. And coming back to our previous example, so with 1 additional movement I will be next to this plunder wreckage space in order to be able to plunder it moving forward. Okay, so this is how navigation works. Very easy and very straightforward. Again, keep in mind that some upgrades or game effects boost your current navigation action with additional movement points. You may move your ship on most spaces on the map, but some spaces are not eligible to enter. The others require movement higher than 1. For example, if you move into shallows, you need 2 movement points. Only 1 ship or monster may occupy the same space, and other ships or monsters may move through the ships and monsters. The Orion MOSFET is an exception. It can stay on the same space as a ship. Okay, so again we have already explored tiles here, so keep in mind that this is a location I don't need to be on there. I cannot actually be in there. I need to be next to it to interact and with Wasteland. Okay, this is an exception for this is shallow, so I can go across, but I need to spend 2 additional points to move across. Here is open sea, so I can still move there. Here it's the same, it's plunder space for me to wreckage in order to go and plunder it. This is these icons, as you'll see, are places where I can go next to them and wreckages and interact to gain the resources. And this is a city, so I can be next to a city from any side in order to interact with the respective city. Also keep in mind that removing or placing a ship on the board doesn't trigger any game effects using the phrase when the ship enters the, for example, whatever. The same condition is true for any marauder, merchant or character NPC, as it will be explained later on. So let's just quickly see some of the spots on the map, so we familiarize with some of the spaces on the map in detail. So this is an open sea space, okay, but also this is an open sea space even though it's part of a tile placement. Okay, we have cardinal direction spaces like this one. For example, this is a cardinal direction space. You may enter the spaces, but you cannot place hex tiles on them, and this shows south. Okay, you can go navigate through them with your ship, but you cannot just overlap them or place tiles on them respectively. Then you have the portals. Let's see them. We've seen the portals that they are on pre-defined locations on the map at the beginning of the game, but again, if you don't have the miniature pack, or you will not get it as an add-on, this will be the tile indicating that this is a portal. Of course, you will agree with me that this looks so much nicer in terms of 3D presence, but of course otherwise the core box will also have tiles indicating portals. Portals, when you enter the syndicate structures, painstakingly constructed to accommodate fast travel between locations, you may spend +1 move to remove your ship from the board and place it on any other portal hex across the map. Next we have the Vault Island spaces, these cloud spaces that you may during setup you may use them to place a portal, the Vault Island. You cannot you can enter these spaces, but you cannot end your space, your ship there. You cannot place a hex to overlap them, and this is one of the 4 spaces where the Vault Island moves around in the pre-designed spaces, one on each side of the board, and you can chase it in order, once you have the coordinates, to gain the benefits, as we have seen. We've seen the portal spaces, that they are on the board, actually the portal tiles or portal miniatures. If an event moves those portals in a different location according to the events, this is just going to be in a vacant open sea space. Okay, you can navigate freely through it. Otherwise, it's a space where the portal starts the game from. Then we have the monster spawn locations. These are actually locations where you may enter them freely. You may navigate through them like OpenSea, but keep in mind that these are the spawn points for monsters to come on board. So if an event or something else triggers the spawning of the Leviathan in the left southwest quadrant of the map, it will go exactly there. So you can navigate through them or be close to them, but if that monster hasn't spawned yet, or if the second type of the monster is not on the board, it's one of the viable options that it can be spawned there, so it can also damage you or chase you or create problems for you. Other than that, they're open sea spaces. Then we have the shallow waters. This is an example of shallow water. It has this icon. This is the icon of the shallow waters. It's part of a big hex, 7 hex tiles or smaller hex tiles. In any case, these are shallow waters, and you must spend +1 move to enter the spaces, making it a bit more difficult to navigate, and it needs more movement points. Then you have, in addition, the tides. You can either have a high tide, or you can have a low tide with just one arrow pointing. Okay, this high tide and this is a low tide, so strong tide actually and weak tide. You can distinguish them with the currents by an arrow illustrating on them. One arrow signifies a weak tide, while 2 arrows signify strong tide, and when you enter one of these spaces, you may move +1 for the weak tide and +2 spaces for the strong tide in any direction as part of your navigation action. So it's like a boost into your movement essentially. Now let's see some of the rest of the typical types of spaces and opportunities for interactions. We have wreckages. For example, this is the icon of the wreckage. Okay, so this is a wreckage tile. You cannot enter these spaces. If you're adjacent, you may perform the scavenge action. Okay, place your action token there and perform the scavenge action for the rewards, in this case 2 credits and 1 resource of this type. Okay, these are spaces where you can, as you would expect from a wreckage, exploit them for their resources and credits. Then you have the city icons. Remember, we have 4 big cities with a name. This is a desired city, which is linked with a specific card, if you remember, that you can interact with from the sideboard. Okay, when you're next to one of these spaces around, either here, 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 or here, you can interact with the desired city, or any city actually in the same manner. You cannot enter these spaces. If you're adjacent, you may perform an interact action, and you may plunder also a city. This has 2 spots, so 2 players can interact by placing an action token on the desired city, but you cannot interact more than once within the same round from a single player. Then you have the docks. The docks have these yellow chains or something like that. This is a dock hex. You cannot enter again this space. If you're adjacent to it, you may perform the interact action with the dock. You also have the mod shop, which is this. As the word indicates, you go there to acquire some interesting mods for your ship. Okay, you cannot enter this. You just need to be around it to interact by placing in any of the 2 vacant spaces one of your command actions in order to interact. Just to show you up close, this is how the mod shop looks like, and this is how the dock icon from before looks like. Okay, we've seen already the Plunder, the Wasteland spaces. They have this icon here with a desolated tree or something. Okay, it's a Wasteland space. You can plunder them by using the Plunder Wasteland action. Okay, again, keep in mind that you have to make sure that if you plunder a Wasteland, you need to reduce the track at the corresponding quadrant of the map. We also have the Vault Island, which could be a miniature if you have the miniature pack, like in this case. It's a beautiful miniature, amazing actually. Just take a moment to look how it looks like, fantastic. So this is the Vault Island, but if you don't have the miniature pack, you're going to have a tile instead of a mini for this Vault Island. And last but not least, we have the Propaganda Towers. Here's such an example of such a tile. It's again, this is going to be larger, I think, in the final version, so don't worry about the size of the font. These are the Propaganda Towers. You may enter these spaces, but each time a player does so, they move their allegiance marker by 1 to the right. Okay. Last but not least, we have the Arching Towers. They are similar like the ones pre-printed around the starting spot for the NPC, the Orion. Okay, so when you cannot place hex tiles over these spaces, and these have different effects depending on the events once they are triggered. But for the rest of the time, it's just a space you can navigate through freely. So we've seen how navigation works with the navigate action. Let's see how the scan action works. Similarly, when you perform a scan action, you spend one command token from the left available to the right unused action spot on your player board, and then you perform the navigation by drawing a card from the scan deck. Remember the scan deck? We have prepared the scan deck, okay, and this is a way to actually explore in order to put more tiles and explore the area. Using scan, players can discover new places to interact with, plunder, new cities to trade, scrap, and new items that are available, wreckages, etc, etc. Players will find valuable items, or they can identify location of dangerous monsters also. When a player spends command to perform a scan action, they place their command on their used command space, as I have said, and then they draw the top card from the common scan deck. Okay, so let's see a couple of examples of common scan cards. This would spawn a monster. It says where it's last seen. It sends it's going to have a very specific location to place the gorgonoids, which is this specific monster, okay, on that quadrant of the map. It's going to go on its own specific spawn spot, you know where this is going to be, okay? And in this case, your crew is unsettled, you're going to gain 1 victory point, but also you're going to lose 1 morale. And all monsters will come from different scanning on the board. But why would you continue to scan? Because you need to find different locations and different hexes and different things to interact with. So this is another result of another scan card. This is a strong tide. It will force you to place a strong tide hex to a minimum range of 1 from where you are to a maximum range of 3 from your ship, and then you will draw another scan card. Next example of scan card result would be some strange device like this one. So strange device, when you scan, sometimes it reveals forgotten treasures. You may keep each of these cards and use them, of course, moving forward, but it counts as once against your cargo space. As long as you have this card, it takes 1 of your space versus your cargo hold, typically 5 when you start the game, unless you upgrade it. You can discard any number of strange device cards while on the central hex of the map to gain 2 renown per card, but if you are lucky enough to claim all 4 copies of a strange device cards, you may discard them simultaneously to gain 15 renown points, okay, as explained on the card itself. Another example of scan result could be to gain 1 mod. Mods look like that, okay. They have the side of the mod that you will install next to your board, as we have seen, but here on top it's this is a rusty turret. This is what you need to do in order to get the mod activated. Your scan sometimes reveals broken machinery from ships that weren't able to be found around the sea, but they were not able to endure against the perils of the vast sea. So you may keep this card as 1 against your cargo space, as indicated on the card itself, shown here with a card cargo item holding token. And when you meet the conditions for this card, you can slot it next beneath your sideboard, your player board, like that. So slot it somehow like that. So that means that you will have, moving forward, this repaired mod and it will give you an ongoing ability, which is very useful. Also keep in mind that you may discard any number of these cards, the mod cards, each time you perform and interact with a city action to sell it as scraps and gain renown written on the card, or you may repair it and use it as mod. The cost and the way to repair it is written on the card itself, and when a player fulfills the card's conditions, they rotate it and tag it, as I said, underneath their player board. Another thing that they can discover through scanning, so another example of a scan card would be to find an artifact. Artifacts are quite powerful. Through scanning you may discover ancient artifacts from the old world, lost and forgotten, and they are useless to most, but sometimes private collectors are obsessed with attaining as many as possible. You may keep this card as one against your cargo, and you can see that again from this icon as a reminder. You may discard these cards while visiting specific cities each time you perform and interact with the city action to gain 3 renown. If during the end game scoring a player still has any of those cards on their ship, they gain 1 renown for each of these cards they currently have. Otherwise they will gain the full amount when they deliver it essentially in that specific city, in this case in Ambition City. And last but not least, the majority of the cards will be exploration cards revealing hexes. These are the most common cards in the scan deck. You may find 2 hex tiles, a 3 hex tile and a 7 hex tile like this one in front of you. When a player draws one of these, they take the top face down hex tile from the stack of this type indicated on the card itself, inspect it and place it on the map according to their liking, rotating it and placing it wherever they want, while also respecting the card's limitation. For example, this one will give you the opportunity to place it within a minimum range of 5 up to a maximum range of 9 from your ship. To count the distances in hexes, a player does not count the space where their ship is in, as considered a range 0. They start from the adjacent one, and either part of a hex must be at least in a minimum distance of the card description in order to place it. Also, don't forget to check if you can place it on top of specific hex location on the map, as it will be more clear later on. Okay, so as you can see, through scan action you'll have a variety of things to discover, and this is the main way out of which you will be populating the map with opportunities and locations. As mentioned, when you reveal and place a hex tile on the board according to your desired liking and your instructions, you will need to populate it with components if needed. So if you reveal a 2, 3 or 7 hex tile and there is a wreckage, you have to populate the elements on it. In this case, this wreckage shows one of these resources and one of that resource. So you place them there. So next time a person interacts with this wreckage, they will be able to recover, extract these resources out of it, and once they do, it will be permanently empty. Another common action that you can do is Tether, which has this icon here with a hook. So when you perform the tether, this action allows the captain to collect large quantities of water from the sea to produce the so-called brew that you want for your crew members. In rare occasions, the trapdoors used the tethering process would pull up some unexpected goodies. So among others, credits are often found in all containers, but also sometimes in the hope of something slightly more useful. When a player performs a command spends a command to perform a tether action, they place their command to their used command space like before on their player board, and then they raise the brew by 2. Then they play 1 fate card from their fate deck, from the 2 ones that they have, and depending on the number of the card played, if the card has a value from 0, so first of all, the first thing that they do is they raise the brew and they gain up to 2. Okay, and the second thing is they play 1 card from the 2 that they have in their hands. So remember, every time you have 2 fate cards. So if you played a card with a value 0, so you only focus on the number. If you played on the card from 0 to 3 range, then they raise the brew by 1 more. If they opt and they can to play a card from 4 to 5 to 6, higher number card that is, then they gain 3 credits. Okay, and this is a nice way to gain either brew or credits by spending fate cards from your deck and replenishing your hand with always having 2 fate cards. Another action that you can do is you can interact with something. So you can interact with a city, you can interact with docks, or you can interact with a mod shop. Okay, you need to be adjacent only. Okay, so you will not be on top of this icon, you will be next to a city, next to a dock, next to a mod shop. Okay, you'll spend one of your command tokens, this time placing it on the actual location. So if I'm here, okay, I'm here and I want to interact with a city, I will place my command token on the actual map. If I'm here or here, doesn't matter, and I want to interact with a mod shop, with a docks, there needs to be one available spot from the two available on the hex, on the dock, and I will place one of my tokens there. I cannot place a second one on a future turn, but another player can also place one and populate it there. During the end of round, this will be removed, so this will be available again for next round. It's not like the Wreckage, which is extracted and then forgotten and out of the way. Another thing that you can interact with is the mod shop that we have seen before. And you place one command token on one available mods shop space, as long as you're next to that spot. So what you would be able to do there depends on your details, and for example, you can see if you're next to the docks, you may spend discard 1, 2 or 3 resources of that type to flip 1 or 2, 3 damages tokens from the damage token to the geary token. And that's a way to collect geary tokens also. You can do that only if you're next to docks and you spend one command action to place it on the docks. Okay, then you have the option 2, so you can do all the options but only once. You can upgrade cargo, you can discard tokens to take this upgrade, okay, and be able to take upgrades for the cargo, linked with the cargo, because they have this icon, and expand your cargo essentially. So these are the explanation of the upgrade tiles. Okay, if you're next to a city and you interact with a city, you may upgrade different things. So you can gain specialist, okay, you can gain credits in addition to the specialist, etc. So these are the 3 different type of crews for this icon, 3 different types for this icon, these are specialists, and 3 different types for this. All 3 icons, so 1, 2, 3, they match your player board, as you can see, and these are specialists that you can place on your player board respectively. But you interact and you get them from the city. And which city, you may ask? For example, if you want to hire this type of specialist, any of the 3 options for this icon, you need to be on the clock city and spend 10 credit. There could be a variety of options depending on the different cities. Okay, for example, for this type of specialist with this icon, you can select any of the 3 options from the upgrade library, and you need to spend 3 credits and be on the buzz hold city, and so on. You get the idea. So in order to get specialist for your player board, for your ship, you need to be on the city. Another option we mentioned is the mod shop, which has this icon. So you need to be next to a mod shop, spend one action command on the mod shop itself, which is here, okay, and be next to the mod shop and interact with that. How do you interact? You have the first option. You can do both options, by the way, but only once each, or 3 options in the mod shop. So you can discard 5 credits to take one of the upgrades linked with the mod shop, any of the 3, to put in a single spot with this icon, okay, for the expert system. You can discard crew members to gain X crew members, so change expertise. So you can discard, for example, 1 rimrod to take 1 heavy gunner, or 2 skirmishers to take 2 foragers, and so on. And then in addition, you can do pep talk. You can move your allegiance by 2 spaces to the left or to the right. Okay, so you can adjust your allegiance at the bottom of your track. All these the options are available at the mod shop. And I failed to mention that in the docks that I said before, you can spend you know, resources to repair damage, but you can also acquire, as you can see, different types of modifications. This is the main location you go to, the docks, in order to upgrade the majority of your ship. But for specialists, you go to the city, and for expert systems, you go to the mod shop respectively. And this is how the interact with the location works with. Next action we want to see is how you scavenge a wreckage with this icon. Okay, so again explained on the player aid. So wreckages of destroyed cities and ships remain on the sea. They remain to be discovered. They have colossal piles of steel and iron. These hold little but no value to regular folk. Still, scavengers and pirates find all sorts of scrap and lost technology that they either utilize on their own ships with a little ingenuity, or sell to appraisers nearby cities for a high price. When a ship is adjacent, like this one, adjacent to a wreckage which has this icon and has available resources and or credits on it, the player can spend a command token from their available actions. They would place the command directly on the icon spot of the wreckage, and then they will play a fate card from their deck. The fate card result is 0 to 6. Okay, if that's the case, like in this one, any card between 0 to 6, they take everything shown on the current wreckage, scavenging it and placing it on the cargo according to their cargo vault limit. Next to see is how you plunder Wasteland, a tile with this icon. You need to be adjacent only as the player aid indicates, so you need to move. Let's say with my first action, 1, 2, 3, I navigate, or 1, 2, I navigate here. I'm next to this Wasteland space, okay? So I'm eligible to plunder it. Remnants of the old world, these barren lands hold little to no value to regular folk. Just like with the wreckages, scavengers and pirates can find all sorts of scrap and lost technology that they can utilize in their ships or sell to appraisers in nearby cities. Some wastelands hold the treasures hidden in settlements and abandoned vaults, and when pirates come across such ingenious sceneries, they usually go on a rampage in an attempt to locate the potentially hidden loot. So when a player ship is adjacent to any hex with this icon, the Wasteland icon, as you can see, they may use this action and place their command directly on the Wasteland hex in order, instead of using the command space next to their player board. In this case, they would place it here. Okay, and essentially indicating that they're going to plunder this Wasteland. The current player adds their total force generated from their crew, foragers and skirmishers, versus Wasteland icons. In this case, foragers give me 3 and skirmishers give me 5, for a total 3 plus 5, 8 force. Also keep in mind that some upgrades and R&D milestones add force, while low brewer subtracts from their total force. Okay, so you have this number. You can also play a fate card from your hand to add its numerical value to your total force. So let's say so far I have 8, plus I'm deciding to play one card from my fate deck. Let's say I'm playing this one. Sorry, this is from the other captain. This should be from this captain. Okay, so I'm adding a fate deck to the red captain, so only using the number in this case. So I'm adding a 4, so 8 plus 4, 12. That's my total force I generate for this plundering assault. Then they choose a plunder difficulty level based if they want to go versus level 1, level 2 or level 3. Okay, and they pick up the whole deck. If they go for level 1, the easy plundering, let's say they pick the whole deck, all of these cards, they shuffle them, and each of these cards in this deck for plundering is used every single plunder action. So they shuffle this deck, and once thoroughly shuffled, they pick up from their desired plunder level, in this case again level 1. You can see what you can expect: 6, 6, 5, 7, 7 and 8 in the numerical values. So I know with a 12 I'm already successful. There is no way I can be not be successful. But if I opt to go for a level 2 plundering, you see I can go again, I can be successful, okay, based on the numbers. But if I with 12 force I was going for this deck, there's no way I can defeat it, because it's 13 and up the numbers. Okay, so you can optimize. This is a nice mechanism of the game. So in this case, let's say I draw 1, I see the number of the value, the limit for the force, and what happens if I win or lose, meaning I compare myself versus the number of from the plunder deck. So in this case, 8 and more, that means I'm successful. 7 and less, I'm not successful. So I would win with 8, 9, 10, etc. In this case I had 12, so I win, so I gain 1 morale plus 2 renown victory points, and also in addition I gain 1 reward and 1 resource, which means this is a generic for all resources, 1 resource of my choice and 1 R&D. Okay, if I had 7 or less, I would lose, which means I would lose 2 morale and I would gain as a catch-up at least 1 credit. So this is how plundering works. It's very straightforward. You have some risks. You can go with low possibilities, chance to succeed, or high possibilities, or even with determination. In this case there's no way I could lose the plundering because the highest number is 8, so with a 12 or even an 8 I would automatically success in plundering. Okay, so that's a nice mechanism of the game, and in this case I would gain the rewards. And the next thing that it's also important to note is I would also have to lower the plundering meter for this specific quadrant of the bottom left side, the southwest side of the map. In a 4-player game I start here, so by performing 1 successful plunder I would lower it by 1. If my plunder was not successful, I would not touch this meter, I would leave it as it is. Only successful plundering pushes this meter 1 step below. And again, if it was here and I performed a successful plunder, that means they would move here, and that means this will flip to the no plundering allowed icon. That means in the southwest quadrant of the map you will not be able to perform plundering wastelands, even if you have unoccupied available spaces in the future. So this is how plunder wasteland works. Another action is you can also try to plunder a city. Similar like with a wasteland, you need to be next to a city, in this case desired city. You need to spend 1 action to perform a plunder a command to perform a plunder a city action. It works similar like plundering wasteland. The difference is that here there is no meter, no track for the cities, how often you plunder them. Okay, the only difference is we have the city militia that we've seen on the sideboard. Let me show you again for reminder, which is this one here. Okay, now the marker is standing at 2 additional force required, so I'm losing 2 force from the ones creating. So city militia is the defense of any city. Vigilant as they may be, they often lack the means to effectively push back the pirate attacks. However, since the militia maintains a network across all cities, they can and will stand in the way of pirates and make their visits slightly less pleasant, as expected thematically. This track is common for all cities. That means that you attack a single city and the militia track level corresponds for all cities across the board. The track is raised before each time a player performs a plunder a city. So before performing now the plunder city, I would move this here, okay, and then I would be able to perform and execute the plunder a city. Keep in mind that all players suffer -1 to their total force each time they perform a plunder city. When the marker reaches the -2, they suffer -2. But if you move further up, like where the white marker is located now, not only you suffer -2 to your total force generated as better prepared defenses from the cities, but also from that point and onward you have to attack only, plunder only level 2 or level 3. By choice. You cannot go and plunder level 1 even if you wanted to. Okay, and if you go all the way to the top of the track, you see again it's -2, and then you can only plunder level 3, no other option. In addition, keep in mind that as you've seen in the phase 3, this militia track goes 1 down by default, okay, but through the course of the gameplay and the actions of the players, this is going to be frequently increased and will dictate the penalty for total force generated versus cities, and also if you're required to go for level 2 and or level 3 specifically. Next action you can do is you can discover the Vault Island. Okay, so you need to be adjacent, and you can only discover it if you have the 2 coordinates. So in this case the red player has discovered the coordinates because they have 2 markers there, and they are next to the physical location of the miniature token of the Vault Island, and they can interact with it, while the blue player, even though they are next to the physical miniature token, they cannot discover it because they are lacking in their player board the 2 coordinates. Okay, so you need to be both in the next adjacent to the physical mini or token of the vault, which is moving around the board with the events, and also possess the 2 coordinates, meaning you can exactly pinpoint where in this virginity general area the Vault Island is. Very simple. What you do is the Vault Island has a light deflecting camouflage, which makes it almost impossible to find if you don't have the exact coordinates. The island is rewarding, but you may have to wait whether you need to make a visit as you collect the coordinates or postpone it for later, since the fate card you play determines the reward. Because what you need to do is you need to also play a fate card once you have the prerequisites I mentioned. Okay, and then based on the fate card that you played, so it's a whole different situation if you play the 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5 or a 6, okay, from your deck, and depending on what you manage to play from it as a fate card, if it is a 0 or 1, you move your allegiance to the left by 1 space and play another fate card. If it's 2, you gain 5 research R&D, sorry, which is great. If it's 3, you gain 1 artifact. It's 4, you gain 20 credits, and if it's 5, you max your crew up to your limit, and if it's 6, you gain 6 renown. Okay, so you can opt to have both the coordinates if it's not a race versus the other player, so you can see what they're trying to do, and if you combine it with a 6, you can gain all the way up to 6 renown points. So you can time it with your cards and your the 2 cards that you have from the fate, your personal fate deck. Another thing you can do by spending your command action tokens is you can attack a monster, and this is what you do. Okay, you need to spend one of your command actions, okay, and then you need to calculate the total force you generate. You need to be next to the target monster, so in this case this red player is next to the Leviathan, okay, in order to attack it. And then actually this is a bad example because Leviathan has a special ability, so let me use the Ninja as an example, this monster, and I'll come back to the Leviathan later on. So how attacking a monster works: aquatic creatures that have either been infected or polluted by the waters and have mutated to ferocious beasts, or have fused with underwater biomechanical technology. They digested, turning into killing machines. You may find them attractive, but pirates sure do will to hunt them down for the rare parts and fleshy bits, or die trying at least. In order to attack a monster, a player must have line of sight loss with the monster, so it must be in range in order to attack it. That means that it needs to be adjacent if it doesn't have any technologies, or have a direct line of sight to it if it has range. If that is the case, then the player has to be next to it, again if it doesn't have the upgrade. So the attacker must score equal or surpass the target's total hull score. And here's, for example, the different abilities of Gorgonoids, which are these. Or this token, have a hull of 8. Well, Leviathan, you've seen before, has a hull of 9. Okay, while the Ninja has a hull of 10. This one. Okay, or in this case also the Kraken that you see here, which this mini, has a hull of 11. Okay, so you need to match this number or surpass it in order to be able to attack successfully the monster. And how you generate force: of course, there is only 1 space on your player board, 1 crew member. Remember, only the Nimrods generate force. So if I want to match, let's say for the Ninja that I have in this example next to me, the 11 hull that they have, I should have probably invested in having a high number of Nimrods. In this case, let's say 6, and then I'm also theoretically being able to play a high value fate card, so 6 plus, let's say 6. Similarly, like with Plunder, I play 1 fate card in order, or somehow have some upgrades respectively, in order to be able to successfully meet or surpass the hull value of the monster and win, defeat it. Just a brief mention about the line of sight. It needs to be an imaginary straight line from the center of the hex space the ship is to the target hex space where the monster is. If the line is unobstructed by another ship, monster, city docks, wasteland, wreckage, that means they do have line of sight. So once successfully defeated, the rewards would be huge depending on the type of monster. So you see, 1 R&D and 5 renown for the Gorgonoid, 2 R&D and 6 renown for the Leviathan, 3 R&D and 7 renown for the Ninja, and finally 4 R&D and 8 renown for the victory point tokens. So okay, so why not chasing monsters all the time? Why doesn't everybody opt to change monsters, which seems like a very lucrative business to do? You could do so, but keep in mind that they all have special abilities. And for example, Gorgonoids, if the Gorgonoid or a ship ends their movement on or an adjacent space, you have to discard 2 of your crew. Thematically, the Gorgonoids, let's say, kill or destroy 2 of your crew members. If the ship is adjacent on adjacent space as a Leviathan, they suffer 1 damage when performing the navigation action. The Ninja, if the Ninja or a ship ends its movement on an adjacent space, each player discards up to 3 cargo items, so it attacks your cargo. And last but not least, the Kraken. If the Kraken or a ship ends its movement, that means if the Kraken moves towards you or the ship decides to go towards the monster, and its movement on adjacent space, the space suffers 1 damage and discards up to 3 crew items, 3 cargo items and 3 crew members. So really difficult situation here, because that means you don't really want to be next to monsters unless you're well prepared or you're targeting them in order to defeat them, because they will mess you really bad, obviously. Last but not least, the last action that you can do is you can perform an attack versus another ship, another player, which is also something that you may consider in order to gain rewards. So it is widely known that if there is one thing pirates hate more than empty loot boxes, it's other pirates. This is why they usually choose to show each other the artillery at the moment they catch a glimpse of them sailing the same seas. And checking out the other ships, what they gather, collect or carry with them. Of course, this action follows the same rules as Attacke monster. There are some small differences. The attacker totals their force against ships and plays a fate card face down. Again, this will come from your player board. I remind you that depending on the crew values that you have, you take the number from this spot, from foragers, because they have the Attacke ship icon, and the number from this spot, the heavy gunners, because they have an Attacke. So this plus this is your total crew versus other players. So you tally this number, and you also play 1 fate card from your deck, face down. They may also play a research card face up to boost their attack. The defender then goes into play, they total their hull score, and they also play a fate card face down. Both players reveal the fate card simultaneously, and then the defending player may now use their hull upgrade ability if they have it, and if they do, the attacking player must discard the fate card they used and play another one, which is ouch. But then you know it when you walk into it, because you know the upgrades of the other players. After that, if the attacker scores equal or surpasses the defender's total hull, which is the hull score, the total value, then the action is considered successful. Okay, and then you proceed with the attack rewards. If the attack was successful, the attacker gains 1 gearing. It's a nice one of the 8 that you want in the short game, and the defending ship suffers 1 damage. There are reward restrictions. If you're adjacent to a target, you take up to 5 credits and 1 cargo of your choice. That means in this case I'm adjacent, so I can theoretically board them, but if he was attacking from range, because I have specific upgrades and weapons, I won't be able to loot them, because I won't be able to board them. Okay, and if you fail the attack, if the attacker fails the attack, they lower their morale by 1, and the defending ship scores 1 renown victory point because they managed to successfully defend it. So this is very simple, a similar way with the attacking a monster, just that you have the defending player playing a fate card from their deck and adding that to their hull, and this is the number that they want to you want to meet or surpass if you're the attacker. So straightforward. So now let's see how suffering damage works. Now when a player suffers damage, And I remind you, on the back of the gear there is the damage icon, so this is the damage icon. You see this player already has a damage. Actually here they won't have a damage, they will have a geary, which is flipped over from the repair shop. You flip it over to geary, okay? But let's say you suffered a damage in this previous example. So what you do is you flip a card from your fate deck, not the ones you have in your hand, so you don't know the number, until you find the number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6. That number determines where the actual damage took place. So that means in this case 4, I need to find the number 4, which is this one. There's a 4 pointing, let me show you better, 4 pointing towards this spot. Okay, you can see it. It could be either vacant if I don't have anything, or I can already have an upgrade. That means that this specific section is damaged from the attack. So after finding the corresponding upgrade area on the player board, then you place the damage side on that section, in this case number 4. If I had already an upgrade there, that renders it unusable, so I don't benefit from it until I repair it. If it is on an empty spot, that means I need first to repair it to be able to fully use an upgrade that I'm going to place there. So you can suffer damage on the same space more than once, so you can have one and let's say another one too, because two different outcomes had you damaging number 4, for example. When a damage is placed on an upgrade, this upgrade is no longer in use until you repair the damage, and you can place damage on spaces without upgrades. For example, you can place damages here, so 0 to 1 or 1 to 2, that's a space that you can, or if you have a 0 to 1 or a 2 number from your fate deck, you may be placing the damage there. But keep in mind the spaces below your hull don't interfere with any upgrades, but what they do is they lower your hull. Sorry, not lowering your hull, they don't have any other consequences. So these are the only two spots that if you take damage there, that's okay, but if you take the damage on the other spots, the number spots, in this case 4, 5, 3 or 6 here, they do damage your respective upgrades. Okay, keep in note that the specialists here don't have numerical values, that means they cannot be damaged from attacks. Now let's talk about AI movement. We've seen all the actions, we've seen all the details, we've seen how you take damage. Let's talk about AI movement. When revealing an event card, and let me show you again the event deck. This is how the event deck looks like, the back of the event cards. It could be that there is some programmed movement, AI movement. In most cases, the player who moves the monsters and the Orion MOSFET has a minor advantage. So that's why a specific player in each round draws the event. For example, when an event card instructs you to move a monster up to 3 spaces towards the north, it means the exact space the north symbol is on, as mentioned before. But the AI must always end its movement on the hex space closest to its destination if able. But the path followed, the shortest path, it's up to the player. For example, this event says that you start from top to bottom, by the way, so first players, all players would gain credits, etc, etc. But let's say here is a monster activity. All monsters move 3 spaces towards the closest wasteland. Okay, so for example, this one would move 1, 2 here to be next to the closest wasteland. But for example, it could be that you have also other players there, so they could move, if the controlling player can pass it through the space, the shortest route that involves your ship in between, and actually attack you in that way. So this is how the AI movement can be used. The endpoint must be the specific one. You need to take the shortest route, okay? Or if it says towards south, and it's the end destination must be the south or the north or east or whatever. But the AI movement, the actual movement of the miniature or the token of the monster is up to the player who's controlling it, who drew the event card. So if when an event instructs players to perform an AI movement to closest location or object, it means the location object closest from its current location to its destination, measured in hex spaces. If the AI is already adjacent to such a location or object, they don't move. When an event instructs players to perform the AI movement to the closest ship, this always refers to the player ships or NPCs when playing solo. So not merchants nor marauders if you're using these modules. But in addition to ships on the same space as the Orion monster, MOSFET, are not considered as the closest ship in the case, in such case, and an order derives from the event of the card effect. Keep in mind that when the Orion MOSFET, the big ship, moves, ends its movement or passes through a player ship, that player moves their allegiance to the right by 1. When a player passes through or ends their movement on the same hex as the Orion MOSFET, they also move the allegiance to the right by 1. Monsters have their own rewards and penalties, as we discussed before, and also, for example, as you can see here, it could be another event. Let me show you. It could be that the Orion MOSFET is moving. So in this case, the programmed AI movement says that the Orion MOSFET moves 5 spaces towards the near east. After its movement, a player with a ship on the same space as the Orion MOSFET removes it from the board and places it on the green portal if able. Okay, so both the monster and the Orion MOSFET NPC programmed AI movement is done with instructions indicated on the card from the controlling player. Last but not least, a quick word about the fate cards and the event cards. The fate deck indicates strokes of fortune or misfortune that may happen when a player chooses to take an action. This may be divine benevolence or a simple change of wind. It can prove to be a make or break occurrence towards success or failure. So each player has the same number of copies of starting fate cards illustrated with their captain on the background, as you can see. The deck of fate cards without a captain illustration are placed near the sideboard, and these are the main boards that you can upgrade your fate deck by adding through the R&D track more fate cards, which also have the same back once acquired. Most actions and some upgrades require players to play a fate card to add the numbers to the outcome. So when you play a fate card, you immediately draw a new fate card before anything else and add it to your hand. So if you are like that, you would draw one fate card and immediately add it to your hand. So you would be having 2 fate cards to choose from at any given time. Okay, so if from the 2 ones I spend 1 to do something, then immediately I will draw up to 2 to always have 2 fate cards available for my next choice. Okay, so when you play a fate card, you immediately again draw a new to replenish it. Your hand limit is 2, which means you must always have 2 fate cards in your hand, except when upgrade says otherwise. Some fate cards have abilities to use for the current action marked with the instant thunder icon, this one for example. So let me show you this one. So let's say I play a card and then I draw 1 to replenish my card from the deck, and this one has the thunder. I may decide to immediately spend it to take 1 resource, as it says, and then I draw another one. Okay, and I keep it. There's no thunder there, no thunder icon. But if I wanted to keep it for the 5, I ignore this one and I just keep it there, and I want to have a 5, which is a high number, for example. Okay. Some fate cards have abilities to use for the current action marked with the thunder, so you need to be careful of those if you want to use them. You can play it and gain the rewards as depicted on the card without spending in action. You can't use such card for its numerical value. And so gaining any rewards, do so by gaining rewards listed on the card. When playing and resolving a fate card, place it on the discard pile that you form next to your fate deck. Okay, so you always have a discard pile next to your deck, and you always have 2, a draw pile and 2 cards in your hand to choose from. There is 1 card in your fate deck which has, or more than 1 actually, which has this icon. When this happens, when you play a fate card with this icon, the next thing that happens is that you shuffle all your fate discard and your fate deck again after you played it. You take all your discard, you take all your fate deck, even if you have more cards remaining, and make a new deck, draw deck to use. So whenever you play a card with the shuffle icon on it. And again, just to focus on the events, as we said, the event cards have a number of things, for example, and you always resolve them from top to bottom, okay? You can also have this type of events, which this box happens if it is a day round, or this box happens if it is a night round. For example, in this case, during night, all monsters would gain 2 extra hull. Ouch. Yeah. Other than that, you will follow the routine from top to bottom. Okay. Typically, it could be something random for all. So all players gain 1 resource. Then you go to this box from top to bottom. In this case, Arching Tower. The first player places 1 Arching Tower 1 to 5 spaces from the Orion MOSFET on any empty C space. Okay. Then moving forward, we have monster activity and AI movement. All monsters move 3 spaces towards northwest. Then you may have the NPC Orion MOSFET AI movement. The Orion MOSFET moves 6 spaces towards the closest ship. After its movement, the player with the ship on the same space as the Orion MOSFET removes it from the board and places it on the green portal Fable. Okay, and also if they reach them, then they also have to reduce their allegiance track by 1. And then you have the last portion, which is the Vault Island in most of the cards, not in all of them. In these cards you don't have it, where it says remove the Vault Island and place it in the next space in a clockwise order, so it moves around the board on the defined spaces that we mentioned. So this is everything you need to know about the events, and now you know all the rules of the game. Endgame scoring: when any player reaches 30 renown points or 8 Giri, or 50 renown points or 10 Giri if you're playing the longer game, according to the limit you set up during setup. All players play until the end of the current round, and then all players play another final round. When the end of phase 3 of the final round is resolved, the game ends and the end game scoring is calculated respectively. Now, how this is done: every player scores the following: 1 renown victory point for every upgrade on their ship, 1 renown for every 5 credits they have. For example, each of those token, if you have 5, we're going to give you 1 renown point. 1 renown for every resource they have on the cargo. In this case, this player is going to have 1, 2, 3. You don't see it, but they have 3 resources, so they will gain in the cargo. They will gain 3 renown, 1 for each. And then each player is going to score 1 renown for every coordinate marker they have. Let's say you have 1 or even 2, but you didn't get a chance to interact with the Vault Island yet. If it's the end of the game, you will score for 2 victory points, for 1 victory point, 1 renown. In addition, each player scores 3 renown for every Giri token that they have acquired. So if you when you repair damage, you just flip it on the Giri side. So for every 1 repaired, 1 Giri from this side gives you 3 renown. And each player subtracts 2 renown for every damage they have on the ship. So if you didn't repair it and you have it as a damage, you're going to lose 2 renown. So you need to think careful about leaving damage unattended, because if the end of the game comes, you will lose 2 victory points. Some cards score renown, while others lower the renown of a player. The player with the most renown points wins the game, and in the case of the tie, the player with the most ship upgrades wins the game, and if it's still a tie, the player with the most crew members wins. If it's still a tie, the player who is first on the first order track is the final winner of the game. So there you have it. This is everything you need to know on how to play the Iron Core. A fantastic gaming experience, as I mentioned. I just want to show you that there are there is a lot of value in the game besides the replayability of on its own, and how you can make the ship your own, and the upgrades and the sandbox experience. You have different modules. One module is the extreme weather conditions, which affects the quadrants differently with the weather cards. This is a nice module. Then you have the merchants, which inserts 5 merchant ships which we can interact with and make a trade, and they are running up and down in the map, and you can interact with them like merchants. Then you have the marauders. It's 5 marauder ships, and this is either a token or a miniature, depending on if you have the miniature version or box add-on, where they are, as the word says, marauders, and they mess up with you. And the last, you have the captain skills, which is another module that you can also have as part of the additional modules and ways to play the game. You can combine them also, of course, and not to forget to mention, there is a solo mode which has a very interesting, it has a solo board that you play, and it's one of those solo modes that has a very small upkeep. You use an AI deck that with which you control the movement of the NPCs and the monsters and everything, and it's done in a very simplistic way, and you can play versus an easy game versus one faction, or a more difficult game versus two factions, or a more difficult game versus three factions. And it's one of those solo games that not only feel like playing versus real players, so they emulate the multiplayer game very nicely, but you can also get a low maintenance aspect of it. That means it's easy to handle and use it for solo. So there you have it. Now you know everything about Ion Core. So let's join back up for my final wrap-up and final opinion about the game. So there you have it. This is Ion Core. This is a game I was sure that I'm going to love, because everything from the first images I've seen, the first photographs, the first illustrations, really had something very vibrating and pulsating, I should say, or whatever, towards the theme, the art, the universe, and the vibes that the game is throwing at you. So when I played the game and when I experienced on my own the versatility in upgrading, how many different ways you can upgrade, go for upgrades or different things you can focus, and again how immediately play second session and try completely different upgrading, and that's fantastic. The exploration of the game is amazing, because how you shape the map by placing the tiles, orientating them, creating opportunities for you to exploit, or other players as well, of course, it's not only for you, or difficulties, how you can navigate from portal to portal, how the treasure island moves around and gives you opportunity to chase it, how the NPC Orion moves around and interacts with you. At the beginning, for example, in my last session, I was being a bit unlucky, you know, because I was always close to the Orion. Maybe I wasn't too far away, and it was always racing into me and making me drop my allegiance to the Pirate Syndicate, and eventually getting a lot of side quests. But because I focused really hard on this side quest, and then I wanted to drop with one card that came to me, I wanted to drop even more my allegiance, because I was if I fulfill it, I would gain more renown points. I managed to make the best out of a bad situation. So that's also something interesting with the NPC going there, and it has all these elements I would expect from an open sandbox experience. In a way, it emulates the open world and the freedom of a video game, which I like and I love, and I'm sure many of you do, but with a very well crafted, I don't know, engine behind the hood, under the hood. It has a lot of things to focus on: the upgrading, on the R&D, on the correct exploration, on pursuing different things. You can go more towards hunting monsters, towards hunting other players, towards plundering things, or interacting with cities, or fulfilling side quests if you want intentionally, etc, and leveling up and becoming better and bigger. And you can also adapt in the course of the game. So if you do a bit of everything, most probably you're not going to win the game. At some point you need to focus or shift focus to another focus of the game, another side of the game, by hunting monsters or by doing something else, so that it gives you more points and propels you towards victory. And this freedom, for me, it was amazing. I mean, it's in an essence it's amazing in all sandbox games, but I think this game really does it well. Sandbox done right, I should say. And if you put on top of that the theme, which blends really nice, smoothly with the mechanics, the upgrading level and the game mechanics and the action point system that you use, blend really well with being on a world where the water has risen, everything is destroyed, dystopian, and players have turned into piracy to trying to interact with plunder wastelands, or interact with cities to build up their scrap, let's say modern scrap ship to a better one with more upgrades, and become better into facing the challenges and the adventures of the open sea. Really nice, fantastic experience, great tempo. It doesn't take long for you to play and wait for other players to play. I mean, you finish the session and you feel like you've done more than that you have actually, you finish the session and you think that you've done so much with the game that when you see the clock, or, you know, when you see what time it is, you realize that you know, I've done so many things. I would expect I would be playing for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, but engaged in 4 hours, and it's only, you know, 1 hour and a half or something like that. So that's another plus in my book for games like this. It scales really well, so if you play with 2, 3 or 4 players, it doesn't take that much longer. It's very close to the time that the session lasts. Typically sandbox games tend to drag when you play with more players. This one almost no extra time. Okay, you have some more time if you're playing 4-player versus a 2-player, I suppose, but it's something that it's well within the limits that it's acceptable, so you don't have a downtime waiting for other players to play, and you can also focus on you know, trying different things and doing different things. Now, in terms of modules, the game has the merchants module, it has the marauders module, it has the weather conditions, which change the quadrant, which has different weather conditions. I found all this system with the gates and the quadrants and the, you know, the framework of the game really amazing. And if you, on top of that, you add the modules, you have an already full game, and you have so many more opportunities that really twist a bit the game towards one direction, or add something like a spice, and it gives you even more things to explore the game. But no need, you know, just when you have a great game, you want more of a great game. That's what I'm trying to say. The core game has amazing replayability, and it's a fantastic system. I can't recommend it enough. I really urge you to check it out. It's one game that is definitely going to get reprint and expansion on second crowdfunding, because people are going to ask for it, I'm telling you, right ahead. Everybody who has played the game, and I know people, and I read about people, and I heard about people, both people I know and people I don't know, that they played the game and they loved it. They loved it, they didn't like it, they loved it. So there you have it. This is everything you need to know about Ion Core. Highly recommend it, and I'm urging you to check out the link in the description for the crowdfunding campaign page if you haven't done yet, and wait for the campaign to launch to find out more about the game.